y'all, it's me Alex. Today I am doing another ranty type video. I wanted to talk about returns, like just returning makeup and skincare and hair care products in general. I know I've been seeing a lot of videos from people in countries where you can't return makeup talking about their thoughts on like the pros and cons of returning makeup. The one that really inspired this video was from a friend of mine, MiaR Beauty, who I will link that video in the description box below because I think she comes in with a really good perspective about returning makeup. And I kind of wanted to share my perspective about returning makeup as someone who, like, I'm from the United States and I am physically capable of like returning anything to store that I want to. But I'm also the kind of person who I really very rarely do I actually do that. And I'm someone who really tries to be a conscious consumer. If you've been on my channel for any amount of time, you know that. So I have my notes on my computer, as I always do when it comes to these sorts of videos. So if you see me looking down, that is what I have, that is what I'm doing. And also, if you want a tutorial on this eye look, keep your eyes peeled. In the next couple weeks, I have done a 3 looks 1 palette with my Micheloux Witchcraft palette. That'll be coming up at some point. I forget when. I swear I actually have an uploading schedule when it comes to my videos. So anyway, I'm just gonna get into it. So I just first wanted to go through the pros and cons of being able to return makeup, since I do come from a perspective where I am physically able to return makeup to most stores. Businesses like Sephora and Ulta, Target, the places that I would normally go to buy makeup, generally have a pretty good return policy, like come back in within 30 days, whether it's used or not, stuff like that. And I don't know if I actually particularly like that, but I'm gonna get into it. So some of the pros: you don't have to commit to a product. Like, you don't have to be afraid of whether or not the product is actually going to work well for you. So for example, I'll take the Subculture palette that I got when it first came out, and you know, there was a whole controversy of it. I was at Ulta and one of my friends works at Ulta, so I was talking to her. I was like, hey, I really want to get this, but y'all have a good return policy, right? And she's like, yeah, if you don't like it, just come back and return it. And that was kind of one of the first times, well, not one of the first times, but like one of the things that I was really thinking about when buying a product like that. If you've watched my videos, you know that I ultimately did not end up returning that palette, just because I really do like the Subculture palette. It has its problems, but I like it. You don't have to commit to a product. If it's something like that, where I like it if it's kind of like a polarizing product where it's one of those things that you either really love or you really hate. It's nice so that you can like kind of really try something out and not be too worried about the investment there. And you can also return a product if it is broken or otherwise faulty. That's why I do keep in mind when I'm ordering from online shops what their return policy is, because I'm always scared that something is going to get broken when it's getting shipped. And you know, sometimes things get shifted around in store and you might not realize that an eyeshadow was broken or something like that. And so you can always return it. So I think that's really good. But some of the cons, which to me personally I think outweigh the pros, the first one is that it's wasteful, and usually when you return a product, it gets thrown away, or sometimes it'll become a tester if we're lucky. I know that there's been the stories in the news about Ulta repackaging used makeup and selling that, but I also know that that's not standard procedure for most stores. I don't know what conclusion that came to, but I still know for the most part, makeup that was used that gets returned usually ends up getting thrown away or made into a tester, and that's if we're lucky, is that it gets made into a tester. Also, being able to return products really easily means that we don't have to think as much about our purchases or hold ourselves accountable for making bad decisions. One of the things that I really do like to keep in mind is I usually wait for a lot of reviews when it comes to certain products. Like, I don't do it as much for indie products. For example, I want to order the new Makeup Monsters palette and I don't really care about, you know, getting a review first, because to me that is a brand I trust enough to like do good quality products. But if it's something from a more mainstream brand like Urban Decay or Anastasia Beverly Hills or Too Faced or Kat Von D, those are usually products that I do wait and see what other people think of them, so that I can kind of get a feel for, is it something that'll work really well for me, things of that nature. I also like will watch specific people who I know we have very similar taste in makeup and like similar skin types to see as to whether or not things will work out. When you are able to return return makeup really easily. You don't have to do all that. You can just go in and buy something and not care as to what its fate is after you get it and return it. And the other thing is too, is someone else could have had that product that we decided wasn't worth it. I want makeup to be well loved by someone. I know that there are certain things, there are certain products that I find really pretty, a lot of like different eyeshadow palettes and stuff that I find really pretty. For example, I'll take the Naked Heat. I think it's really pretty, but I know that somebody else who isn't me, who has a different taste in makeup than me, could love that palette a lot more than I could. So I don't want to buy it and then return it or have it and not use it, because I know I'm not going to get the same amount of use as someone else, and I don't want to deprive someone else of that. So all of that is to say is I do have mixed feelings about returning makeup. There are legitimately really good reasons as to why you should be able to return makeup, you know, if something's broken or if it's something that really did not work despite you kind of going through reviews and stuff, you know, that's totally understandable. But I also think that it leads to a lot of consumerism, and I know American culture specifically is, we tend to be very wasteful and not think too much about what it is that we're consuming and why, and should we slow down, and it leads to a kind of throwaway culture in that we just don't have to think about things, and we just think, oh, we can return it without regard to like what that actually means. Will it create more waste? What will it do to the environment? What will it do to, I don't want to say the companies because, you know, corporations aren't people, but what will it do to like other, like the impact that we have on other people, and and our impact on ourselves too as people who, I think everybody has a certain ethical obligation to just be an ethical consumer and buy what you know you're going to use and not live entirely in excess. That is not to say that my makeup collection isn't freaking huge, but it's huge and filled with things that I do get a lot of use out of. Everything, aside from a few duds, because I do try and clean out my collection regularly and like give things away to people. Everything that I have in my collection is generally something that I will get some sort of use out of. And that is something that I really care about. I rarely, if ever, return makeup. I don't think that there's ever been a time when I've bought something and used it and returned it, so that might just be me up on my high horse this entire video, but I also know it has a lot to do with the fact that I have social anxiety, and I don't want a person working at a shop to judge me and be like, oh, she's so wasteful, like how dare she. You know, I have a bit of anxiety as to like, you know, is the person working there when I go to return it, are they gonna judge me? I am like, not that they would ever say it to my face, because you can't do that in customer service work, but like if someone works there, they likely know what's gonna happen when I return it, and I like don't want them to think less of me. Yeah, like I know I don't know them, but I still have that thing about wanting to just really be loved by everybody, you know, that's why I'm on YouTube, for validation, you feel. I'm gonna share a couple situations that I thought about returning makeup. So I've told you about my subculture situation where that palette was so pretty but so controversial that I did want to have the opportunity to really try it out for myself, since I know different batches had different formulas and stuff, so I wanted to make sure that like I could return it or exchange it if it was something that I didn't like, but I never ended up having to do that. There's also a time in Target, this is just kind of silly, but it is the one time that I remember like being really nervous about going in to return something. So I went in and I needed to buy conditioner for my hair. So I went out and I checked out at the checkout, and I got to the car and I realized that I had bought shampoo instead of conditioner, and I was like so embarrassed and ashamed, and I went back in and I was just like, can I return this, please? I need to just exchange it for the conditioner instead of the shampoo. And like everything was fine because I didn't use it. I didn't have to be worried about wasting, but I was like, yeah, I should look at, like I should read the labels of things, but also like, why do they put shampoo and conditioner in like identical bottles with slightly different labeling? I don't know. That's my one awkward return moment. And the other time that I've actually thought about returning something was my Kat Von D Serpentina palette. I did like it initially, but the more I used it, the more I didn't really care for it. For me, the only draw to that palette was that the warm tone shadows in the palette were really, really good, but the cooler tone shadows were a bit more muddy, they weren't as bright as I wanted, and so it just didn't work out. But kind of by the time that I was really thinking about returning it, I think it was close to when the return policy was expiring, and so I just kind of ended up passing it along to a friend after keeping it in my collection for just so long. I don't know what the point of this video is, but I did really feel the need to talk about it. And I just kind of wanted to raise awareness and like get other people's thoughts. I think the other thing about this video is like the other title for it could just be like, why I'm glad I have social anxiety, because I am literally just like, I would be so scared to actually go in and return makeup that I do a lot of research so that I never have to run into that situation again. It's intense, but it's my life. So I kind of wanted to share that with you, and I also wanted to share a couple things that I kind of do so that I don't have to worry about whether or not I want to return something. So one of the things that I do, I go to stores that will give out samples. So when I wore foundation, I would go to Sephora and get samples before going in on like a full-size high-end foundation so that I could try it out. Even if it was like a brand from Urban Decay or Too Faced or something that I could get from Ulta, I would get the sample from Sephora so that I could try it out, and then I'd go buy it from Ulta because I like their point system better. It's just a thing. And at least for me, in my experience, samples give you a couple uses, and I especially like going to Lush for this because they're really good about giving samples that'll give multiple uses. The only time that I've ever had a time where like I wasn't able to get at least 2 uses out of a product is like if it's a hair product, because I have literally so much hair that like one little thing will barely do it. Usually, especially when it comes to like skincare and foundation, like the little, you know, powdery Lush cleansers, you can get a couple uses out of just a tiny little sample that they give. So I find that the samples that you're usually able to get will give you at least 2 uses, which to me is enough to tell, at least with a foundation, and then more, if you get more uses out of it as like a skincare product, you can really tell as to whether or not it's really going to work for you and if you should get the full size. I also watch a lot of reviews, and especially if you can find like a big beauty influencer who does get PR from the companies that do a lot of releases that you're interested in. So I pay attention to a lot of people who I trust who get a lot of releases from like Kat Von D or Strobe Cosmetics or Sugar Pill, because those are the kind of releases that I'm generally interested in. So I pay attention to those because, you know, usually PR comes out before the product does. And even if it's only a first impressions video, because I know that's kind of like largely what people do nowadays, I'm not a fan, but even if it's just a first impressions video, you can kind of see how it applies. And especially if it's someone you trust or someone who has like a similar skin tone or skin type or eye shape or anything, you can really like, just at the very least you get to see how it applies. And sometimes people do wear tests, which I think is also really good. I like to think that I've curated my subscription box pretty well, so most of the people I watch like get a lot of products I'm interested in before I do, even if it's like indie products. I feel like it should go without saying that that's a way to like be smarter at consuming things, but yeah, just like watch a ton of reviews. And I also really try not to impulse buy. I call it the Jesus rule. So if I see something that I'm interested in, be it like online or in store, and I walk away from it and I'm thinking about it 3 days later, then it's something at least worth trying. So, you know, because Jesus, 3 days resurrection, so I'm a seminary student. I like to think that I'm really funny, you know, show up at Ulta, resurrected and ready for makeup. Why did I write that as a joke in my script? Yeah, I think that's a really good way, because sometimes you'll be thinking about it 24 hours later, but then in a week or so you don't care. But I think 3 days to me is a really good threshold as to like to see if I'm still thinking about something, and it also gives you time to watch reviews. So those are kind of my thoughts on returns on makeup. So I'm going to link MiaR Beauty's video down below, because I think she also has a lot of good thoughts from a country where you cannot return makeup. That's the end of this video. Let me know what you think about makeup returns in the comments, just because, you know, I think we all have a lot of different opinions, and I also know that a lot of the people, like a lot of y'all who subscribe to me, do care as well about being a responsible, ethical consumer. I think that's all I wanted to say in this video. So thank you so much for watching. Please be sure to give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and subscribe down below if you want to see more videos from me. And I'll see you on my next one. Hope you have a wonderful day. Bye.